I've been hearing language recently about adaptation, as in we've done so much damage that we as a species need to learn to live with climate change because we can't reverse it. What's your take on that? Is it a realistic view or is it defeatist?
I'm glad that we're talking about adaptation finally.
Okay.
So this is what middle of March 2022. Just a few weeks ago, the IPCC report came out, the latest one, and the theme of it was basically adaptation. It was like, okay, everyone, this is going to get bad, and we need to really start talking about how we're going to weather the storm. No pun intended.
Mhm.
So yes, we definitely need to talk about adaptation. It's not giving up. It's not, in my opinion, it shouldn't inform people to kind of do less work. If anything, we need to really double down. And so natural disasters are going to happen more frequently, whether you like it or not. And it's going to happen for a very long time, for the next couple of generations, probably the next couple 100 years, right?
Mhm.
Even if we turn off the fossil fuel tap tomorrow, our natural world is still off balance. And we're seeing what is happening when that's the case. And so we really must adapt. We have to adapt if we plan on wanting to continue. We have to adapt if we want to continue to live on this planet in some sort of normalcy, right? It's definitely going to be changing. Our way of life, Matt, you and I, I just turned 40, and
Mhm.
how we grew up is going to be very different than how our kids or grandkids are going to grow up, and we just have to accept that. And so adaptation doesn't mean that we just kind of, again, put less pressure on the work that we need to do. If anything, we need to double down, because the more we do today, the lesser of impact will take place over the next couple of generations. And so, yeah, there's no end, there's no finish line, and that's the other thing too. I think a lot of people see climate change as, well, if we just do X, Y, Z, then we're good. It's like, well, no, we're talking about our Earth's living systems. Like, Mother Nature doesn't have okay, we're done, I'm good. It's like, it's it's a living being, right?
Right.
And so the work is just going to have to continue for a very long time for us to really um, put back that balance between our living systems, that we happen to be a species that live within that system, right? So I don't know. Adaptation is definitely not a negative thing. I think it's just being realistic.
Okay. Great. Great. So, uh, what are the plans for the next few years of climate designers?
World domination
I
is
like
that
it.
a? Can I say that? Yeah.
Hey, you got my vote.
Yeah. Yeah, so as I mentioned, we've been around since fall of 2019,
Mhm.
and we've done a lot in the last 2.5 years. We definitely have a lot of plans. We would love to do more. I mean, don't let me, open up our Notion board and just show you all these ideas, because we definitely have great ideas. And yeah, so in the immediate future, our goal in 2022 is to create is to turn climate designers into a cooperative. We really feel like that model plays itself well for just what climate designers is today, with members and boards and different revenue streams and things like that, and people put in their work into it, and they should be compensated for it, right?
Mhm.
We've also talked about certification. We've also talked about, could we come up with some sort of climate designer certification? What does that look like? We definitely want to get more, we want to put out more education opportunities. We're doing a course. We partnered up with Terra.do, Terra.do. It's a great company. Think of it as like the masterclass for climate change. And so they're creating all these different courses. Their goal by the end of 2030 is to create 100 million climate jobs through educating people in various industries, right?
That's great.
And then we really want to just infiltrate the design community as a whole, to have every designer become more aware of their impact and their role in this larger conversation, in this global, crisis, and to really step up and voice their opinions and concerns, and to have that support system at their back, so that when they do run into hurdles, whether it's, clients telling you, oh, we can't afford that, or if your manager is kind of, dragging their ass or whatever, like, we want to make sure that they have the language, they have the resources, they have the processes to really make change within the work that they do. But yeah, I think, it's becoming more than a side project now, and we really, this year, we need to really step it up to make it more of a sustainable business model, so that the people behind it, our volunteers and everyone can get compensated for it. And I don't know, I would love to see this turn into something bigger. And never did Sarah and I think that this would turn into what it is today. And it's only given us motivation to really imagine what else it could turn into in the next 2.5 years.
Fantastic. And you touched on this earlier when you talked about your views on Gen Z. And so I'm guessing you wouldn't devote so much time and energy to this project if you didn't have hope about the state of the environment. What else specifically gives you that hope? And what do you see realistically for the future of the planet and humanity?
Yeah. So I think, this younger generation, they are scared shitless. They're pissed off.
Yeah.
They're not happy with the hand that they were dealt. And, I think our job is to encourage them to use those feelings and emotions in a positive way and to do something. And whether they like it or not, they're going to have to be climate advocates in whatever space that they're in. And how can we, as the adults in the room, provide those opportunities for them to set them up for success? I think another thing that gives me hope too is, and maybe this is a good time to bring this up too. There's this whole doom and gloom narrative that we've been seeing over the last couple of decades in the environmental movement. And that narrative needs to fucking change. It doesn't get anyone out of bed. It doesn't motivate someone to get up and go, okay, I got this. Let's do this, y'all. Like, it doesn't excite people to do the work. This whole doom and gloom, we're all fucked. Everything's going to burn down or whatever. But I mean, sure, we have to accept the reality. I'm not saying to ignore it. But what I'm suggesting is changing that narrative to highlight all the possibilities that this crisis can give us and will give us. So instead of this doom and gloom mentality or this narrative, what about this doom and bloom narrative, where the bloom is focusing on existing solutions that we can easily do today, right? There's so many out there. Project Drawdown is a great resource for those who are listening and watching this to just start to see what's possible. Project Drawdown kind of put together, 80 or 100, so maybe even more now. But when they launched the book a couple of years ago, they highlighted on 80 existing solutions that can easily address our climate crisis. It's a great organization. I'm a huge fan of their work. And when I read that book, when it came out a couple of years ago, it gave me hope. It's like, oh, wait a minute. You mean if we do this, and this in harmony with one another, simultaneously, then we really have a shot. And I think more people need to know that these existing solutions do exist. And if so, then whether you're into accounting or in business or a designer or whatever your skill is, then you can support those companies, those new industries, right? And really help them become successful so that we can actually, address this big, gnarly crisis that we're facing. And I think there's a few other things too. Solar punk is a great, genre or way of looking at what's going on. So solar punk came from like the literature world, but now it's becoming more, in art and design and literature and all these different, kind of creative outlets where it's not the Mad Max future. It's this future where humans live in harmony and balance with nature. And what does that look like? We really need to see that future vision. I think another thing that the environmental movement has done in a negative way has only focused on the negative. It's only focused on stop doing this, stop doing that, do less of this, do less of that. But we're not doing a good job. But we are, I think, but we're not doing a good job of painting that future vision. We are right now. I think we're seeing more and more people that are putting efforts into creating that future vision so that when we talk about we're doing this to achieve that, we're doing this to reach that goal, when you can show people that goal, then we can get more people on board. There's another great resource out there. It's a documentary called 2040. Highly recommend downloading it and watching it. I actually show that documentary in my class at the start of every semester. I teach a class called Climate Designers at CCA. And that documentary is really amazing because this guy goes around and he focuses on 5 existing solutions, taking Project Drawdown as inspiration. And he talks about the technology or, the approach or whatever that solution is. And then he does this really cool thing where he fast forwards into the year 2040, where his young daughter today will be a young adult then. And he imagines this future world where if all these solutions happen to be implemented and be successful, what that future world would look like. And it's just a beautiful way of changing that narrative from, again, that doom and gloom narrative to that more hopeful and reachable future that can totally happen. We don't need to wait for any new thing. Like, we can do this if we really put our efforts towards supporting those existing solutions that are happening. It could be happening right in your own city or town and you don't even know, but if you do the research and if you start talking to people, how can you then, as I mentioned before, lend your skills and talents to support those solutions today?